Hi, HR Nation. Welcome back to another episode of the HR Leaders Podcast, the show where we explore the future of work with industry experts and HR executives in the world, leading global brands. Today, I'm joined by a listener, which I just found out. So I'm super excited to be joined by Meike Salvadó, Chief HR Officer at Royal HaskoningDHV. How are you? Welcome to the show.
Good, thank you.
Before we go any further, tell everyone a little bit about yourself personally and your journey to where we are now.
Yeah. I'm a civil engineer. I'm Dutch. I lived and worked in many countries. So I lived in the UK, in Spain, Poland, Thailand for a long time. And that really opened my perspective to different cultures, different environments, different ways of working. And also helps there that I'm married to a Guatemalan. So my husband is from Guatemala. We have 3 kids and we speak 3 languages at home. So it's all a big blend of everything.
That's crazy. It's amazing. I'd love to hear, I mean, crazy in a good way. I'd love to hear more about how you integrate 3 languages into the household. That's incredible.
Yeah, it goes very smoothly, actually. So it's just a seamless transfer between the languages, and also in my career, I've had a lot of different roles. So I have had commercial roles. I did quality management. I did general management of one of the offices. I worked in corporate strategy, and that has given me also a very broad perspective of things that happen in the company. It gives me a big internal and external network. The company I'm with now is Royal HaskoningDHV, and I joined this company 13 years ago. So I had many roles also in the company, and the role I had
13.
13.
Wow.
Yeah.
Sorry, it just threw me off. It's not often someone says 13.
Yeah.
Just, I was like, wow, that's incredible.
Yeah, once you find a company that you really like, I think you stay, and especially because I've had so many different roles within the company.
Yeah,
it keeps on challenging me, and so that I think it's a great way. I keep on learning every day. And so the role I had before the one I am in now is corporate strategy. And at that time, we developed a strategy of the company where a big part of it is a digital transformation to really change the company into the digital era. And when I was doing that and working on that, I soon realized that the digital transformation is not about technology. There's a lot of technology involved, but it's really about the people. And right at that time, we had a vacancy for a CHRO, and with no experience at all in HR. I did apply for the role, and actually I got the role. So since then, I'm the HR director of the company. That's been 2.5 years ago now. And I never regretted that decision. And I think the company neither. So now we are driving the transformation of the company, but I'm doing that from the people's perspective, which is really a great place to be in.
Wow. And just briefly, tell everyone a little bit more about the company, the people that just aren't aware of the business.
Yeah, so Royal HaskoningDHV is an engineering consultancy. We've been around for more than 140 years. So really a long time, built up a lot of expertise in those years. What we are doing is we call it enhancing society. So everything we do, all our engineering solutions are there to make the world better. So whether it's in water or in infrastructure and all the different areas that we are working, and we do the engineering and coming up with the solutions. And what we are doing now in the digital transformation is also really playing in a different field and changing our position in the market, where it is really supporting the full life cycle of the assets of our clients. So really from the start until the very end of the life cycle, and also in the operations and maintenance part. And so we do that through technology and software that we then add on to our engineering services.
Amazing. Yeah, and definitely a lot of disruption and innovation going on in your space right now as well. So very exciting time.
Yeah, exactly. And there's a lot of also in the way we do our design and engineering, there's also digital transformation just in the way we're working. So
that's what I mean, both sides.
In all areas, there is a digital involved, and that really requires a lot of the people that we have in our company, and also for the people that we want to attract, which is a different kind of people that we are used to attracting.
Yeah. It's quite a testament to the company as well, of them putting that trust in you. You can tell why they've kept someone like yourself for 13 years that they're willing to give an engineer the role of CHRO.
Yes,
Right?
yeah.
That says a lot, doesn't it?
It says a lot about the company as well, and I think that is the connection between strategy, between business, and how it comes together within HR. I think that's what we are demonstrating, that you don't have to have an HR background to be able to make that connections and to really make it work. So it's also the perspective that I take on HR is very much business focused or outside in. So I really need, and I do have very good professionals in my team that really have those the really HR skills and knowledge.
Mm-hmm. And it's like it just kind of shows you as well, you know, HR. I don't like when you hear the word HR business partner, because the business is HR and HR is the business.
Yeah.
It's like we're not a business partner.
Yeah, you're in there together. You have the same goal. Huh? So it's really looking from that. What are we trying to achieve as a company? Is to change our position in the marketplace, to win in the marketplace, and we have to do that together.
Yeah. What was your perspective of HR before going in? Like from the out, like obviously when you were, now you're in the role, right? Yeah. What were your perspective before versus now? What was sort of some of the biggest surprises?
Well, I think I've always been interested in HR, but especially in the part of the talent management, the development. How do you really unlock the potential of the people? So that area I've always been interested in, and you can do that from a management position as well as from HR. Just a different role you play in that process. If I look at the HR function that we have in our company, I think a few years ago it was really a traditional HR function, much more focused on the transactional services, operational services, and so at the same time we are transforming the company, but at the same time we're also transforming the HR function. Mm-hmm. It goes very well together, but sometimes it's really a balance for how fast can you go and what can you already deliver to the business while you're still also transforming your own function. So that is always an interesting balance there.
There's many layers. You've got like your own function transformation, the industry itself, and the business.
Yeah, yeah.
And then you got the people.
So exactly, that makes it so interesting. How do you connect it all together and make it work?
Where do you start? We know transforming, as you said, 140-year-old engineering consultancy. You just get in the seat. You know, where did you start? Like, well, it's quite a daunting task.
Yeah, what helps a lot is that I really understand the business and what we want to achieve. So that's where it all starts. So when we look, you start with the strategy and then translate it into what does it mean for the workforce that we need. And looking at the transformation that we're going through, the workforce really has to change. So there's a big component, of course, of recruitment, and how do we tap into different talent pools, and how are we going to be attractive to those different talent pools? So can we still, the EVP, the employee value proposition that we have, is it still attractive enough for those different talent pools, and what changes do we have to make there? So I think that the recruitment part is a very important piece of the puzzle. But at the same time, we are working a lot on leadership. So how can we really enable our leaders to lead their teams to high performance, but also to lead change and to anticipate what the changes in the future that no one knows will mean for the skills that they need in their teams in the future. So there's a big part of the leadership development there as well. And ultimately, one other important part is learning and development in general. Well, what we have in our company is mostly highly educated engineers, so university degree engineers. So that is people that are naturally interested to learn. So this growth mindset is something that works very well with our engineers. And it's just about feeding them the right bits and pieces of the information and really encourage this to keep this growth mindset and to continuously learn. And that's the only way that we think we can be adapting to the future and to continuously develop new skills. So there's a big focus on just the learning and development part there as well.
Yeah, there's a lot to unpack there. So going back to the recruiting element, then how are you competing? Because you can't kind of race to the top from a salary perspective, because that's just gets ridiculous at that point. And obviously you're an engineering company, and you're basically going after the most in-demand talent, let's be honest, as well. So what are some of the things that you and the team did to attract?
One of the things that we see that works very well for a company is the purpose that we have of our company. So we see that especially young talents are very much attracted to really want to contribute to enhancing society. So that is a part that we have made much more a part of our value proposition, to communicate much more on that, to attract the talent in there, and we do see that works. As you say, salaries is not always the type, we cannot always compete on salaries, but the way the learning part is something that we try to deliver or offer more and better, and that is a part that we are the way, if you look at myself in my career, I've had so many different roles within the company, and there's always something new to learn, something to challenge, new positions. So that is something that we really offer to the employees in a company, to make those changes and to develop yourself and to continuously grow in the company. Yeah,
definitely. And I think now more than ever, I don't know why, it feels like the new generation coming through, it's even more important.
Yes.
And we're starting to see that. And I think especially after the pandemic, people have had a lot of time to think. And a lot of people are like, is this really what I want to do with my life? Because I think people had a bit of a wake up call over the last 15 months of like, if I'm going to be doing something, it needs to be aligned with my purpose and be meaningful.
Yeah.
How do you do that practically though? Like, how are you communicating this? Is it like through your job ads, or like, because it's difficult to communicate?
Yeah, it's very connected to everything. So purpose is so strongly, it's very embedded in our way of working, but also in our communication. And so in an external communication is very much aligned on that. So it's also in our branding and in our awareness. It's all about focusing around the purpose. So that is continuously building that awareness.
So just kind of linked into everything.
Yes, it's linked to everything. And then the other part is what we see as a differentiator in a company is our culture. So if you look at our culture, we are a 6,000 people company globally spread around the world, but still we have very much a family culture, which is quite exceptional for a company our size. So that really binds people together. And even in the COVID times where everyone is working from home, we still get it back from new employees that have maybe never been to the office or just to pick up their laptop, that they still feel so welcomed in this culture of our company.
Amazing. That's what you want to hear.
Yeah.
Especially as we're so disconnected at the moment. Back to the transformational piece. You're what, how 2.5 years into this? Is that?
Yeah.
What would you say has been the biggest challenge so far?
I would say the biggest challenge is to start with the culture transformation, to make our leaders in the company see that culture is the essential element to make this change. So it's all about behaviors. And so it took us a while to get our leadership into that mindset of it's leadership that is shaping the culture, and we are responsible for the culture in a company. So it's and for the behaviors that we need. So if we can translate all the behaviors or to the transformations that we need, we must be able to make the change, but you need to have your leadership aligned on that first.
Looking back, is there anything you would have done differently to speed that process up?
I think generally it takes time, and you do need that time for you, because you need a real commitment. And looking back, I think maybe we were too optimistic on timing and how fast you can go. And I think that's something that we've learned, that it really takes time to build that awareness and that mindset to slowly to start making those changes.
What do you think is the most effective way of doing that?
Well, the way we are doing it now within our the culture transformation. So we we take the strategy as a starting point, and then transformation is not a goal on its own. It's always to achieve something. So it is to achieve the strategy, and then we have translated that into to start with purpose, your values, and then we have translated that really into actual behavior of what we want our people to do. What is the behavior that we want to see? And we have also connected that the internal to the external. So the behaviors that we show internally have this impact on our clients and on society, to really make clear that there is a connection from what we're doing inside to what we are achieving outside. So once we had that framework in place, we started working on a approach where we have 3 streams that we do in parallel. One is focused on leadership, so to really lead by example. That leadership, as I said, plays such a big role in shaping the culture, and it took us quite a while for leadership to get to that part. So what we have done is we've taken all the people managers in our company through what we call boot camps. Mm-hmm. So full day boot camp, on where we start with really on the why. So there's a big part of storytelling in there. So let them tell their own story, and we help them to create their personal story of why we are changing it, so that they can bring that forward to their team. So there's a big part of the storytelling in the leadership, and also to give them the tools and ways to work then afterwards with their teams.
Are you leading these, by the way? Who leads these sessions? Do you lead them?
My team.
Your team leads them.
Yeah.
Oh.
And of course, so we have our team, and we try to also have people from the business involved to lead as well as facilitators or co-facilitators. We can't do everything alone, because
that's why I was
quite
asking.
Quite a lot of people. And also imagine we are in different time zones, so we have from Canada to Australia. And what we also want is mixed, so we have mixed teams, because part of this whole of the change is also collaboration, which I think in any company is always something to improve on. So how do you improve collaboration? So also in this process, we're already trying to build more connections, so that the collaboration will be better afterwards, so or during. And so we're trying to always have mixed teams. What we are doing here is a lot of peer-to-peer learning. So peer learning. So we've recreated a platform where everyone can share their best practices, all aligned with the culture framework and the behaviors that we need to transform. So what are your best practices? We've created an online platform where people can share and people can learn. So that then comes together on quarterly, we call it inspiration cycles. So in quarterly sessions, we have a full day where you, as a manager of teams, you can sign up to the sessions and get inspired by others, or you can present in half an hour sessions and have a dialogue on your best practices.
I love that, especially now as well, because you said a big challenge for companies, again, because we're remote or many people are kind of hybrid, is that collaboration. And typically those connections perhaps happen organically in the office environment. But we need to be purposeful now about recreating those virtually. So I can only imagine different managers in different countries around the world meeting each other through these virtual sessions that probably wouldn't come across each other otherwise.
And that is, I think, one of the things that we see now is a positive of the whole COVID situation, that actually the connection, these kind of connections have become stronger. Whereas normally you would have strong connections to the people sitting close to you in the office, but not so much people further away that you would not usually meet up with. And those have become much stronger now. Mm-hmm.
So what's the second? You mentioned that was the first.
Yeah, that was first. Yeah. So the second one is that we've really translated the behaviors to the daily job. So the behaviors can immediately be applied in your daily work. And I think that's a very important one. That it's not seen as something on top of. The companies, there's always a change fatigue or another initiative here and another initiative there. Well, that's not the case. This is something that you do in your daily work. So it's very practical, simple, and you can just start tomorrow or today. So it makes it really not something extra, but something that people can really build into the flow of their work. And I think that is a very important factor as well to make it a success.
And is that supported by a new technology stack that you put in place?
No, this is it very much comes down to the conversations.
This is more. Okay, I'm with you. Okay, the type of conversations you're having with your teams.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. So it's not something extra. It's just the way you do actually your work.
I see it. And again, you want that consistent across the whole business, which is of course going to shape the behaviors in the culture, which then is going to lead to the results that you need.
That's what we are aiming for. Exactly. Yeah. So that was the second one, and then the third one, which I think is a very important one, but it's never enough, is to align all the processes with it. So you can't say one thing and then have a process completely directing other behaviors. So just the formal elements, the reward systems, the way you do your budgeting, the way you do your performance reviews, all of that has to be aligned also with the behaviors that you want. So we are putting what we say is a culture lens over all our practices, programs, and processes.
Yeah, because that is a part where a lot of companies go wrong. That I've seen in the past is you're saying one thing and you do this great training and you do the first two steps that you mentioned, but then just the way you reward people, the systems, the processes are saying something completely different.
Yeah.
And driving the opposite behaviors.
Yeah, exactly. It has to all be aligned and all fit in. And of course, it's always. So we follow the three streams. We follow them at the same time. We did take the leadership a little bit ahead because they have a more important role to take the rest of the organization with them and to really lead the change. So the leadership is going a little bit ahead of the rest. But yeah, that's what we are in now.
Amazing. And for everyone listening as well, because you mentioned earlier about the timeline, you can't really put a timeline on this, can you? From my experience speaking to other CHROs, there's no such thing as this is going to take a year or 6 months. It really depends, right? And it's ongoing. It doesn't end.
It's ongoing because when is it ready? No, it's never finished.
There's no end date.
No. And that's also, it's an infinite game, right? So you will continue in there.
Yeah, if you want to work in HR, that's something I think people need to understand. It's never ending, and that's also one of the exciting things.
Exactly, yeah.
As well. How did the business manage delivering on the delivery of the day-to-day whilst driving the transformation? Was that a challenge? Because I'm assuming this digital transformation the business was going through, was that also a shift in the product offering as well?
Yeah, it's a shift in product offering and in a shift in the way of working. But for example, when there are interactions with clients, it's always about asking the question behind the question. So that is in any interaction with your client, you can ask 3 times why. You really understand what the client is trying to achieve. And by doing that, our solutions can also be different or more innovative or addressing actually the problem that there is behind the initial problem. So that is something that we can just build in the interactions with the clients that are already there.
Mm-hmm. Was there also a big rebrand of to clients that we now offer these new solutions as well? Because maybe perhaps clients that have been working with you for a long time.
Yeah, we are in that now. So it's actually, so the branding was a little bit behind with what we are doing, but we have the reason why we're doing it like that is that we first want to have the proof. So it's
you got to have that first.
You cannot just sell a story. And that is also a bit like engineers. So we just need to have a solid story before we can actually sell it.
Amazing. Good to hear. I know something you're really passionate about, and it's also been a challenge in your industry is around diversity, especially in engineering. It's always been a challenge. So I'd love to hear kind of what you're doing on this and your thoughts.
Yeah. No, I think diversity is indeed a challenge in our industry, and then especially the gender diversity.
Yes.
So then diversity has, of course, has many angles, but we talk a little bit about the gender diversity, which is specifically in our industry, a challenge. Well, first is to start with, why do we need it? And there we come back to our strategy, and we really need innovation. So to be able to innovate, you just need different perspectives, and you need to have those the diversity of thought is so important to get to the table, to get the better solutions. So for us, diversity is not a nice to have, it's something that we really need to be able to be successful in the business. So that is something that we are always, or we are really taking that approach, that it is a business that need, so not a tick in the box exercise. But what we are doing with diversity is again, we take the same approach that I explained for culture, that is also on 3 different levels we are working on it. And so when we look at the behaviors, the daily behaviors, we have really included inclusion in there. So to have inclusive meetings, or to be inclusivity moments in any formal or any meetings that are happening already. But to be without inclusion, there's no diversity. So the inclusion part is definitely also an important one. So
what does that look like? What does that look like? Is that a training? Do you also provide managers as well?
We do, but we do have unconscious bias training for managers and hiring managers, all of that. But what I was referring to is just the way you set up your meetings. You think up front on how can you make sure that your meeting is inclusive, so that you know that everyone can have. So already think of it in advance and be conscious about it on it. And there's always a moment in the meeting to have an inclusivity moment, to say this, and you let someone present something on a specific topic, so that it's always top of mind.
Yes, and that then becomes a behavior over time. I was referring to the same thing that you're referring to, because it's because you get the powerful voices in any meeting that can sometimes take over. So it's important to make sure that you know there's those people that perhaps in the background that they're not as confident or outgoing to kind of take a moment to make sure you ask questions, or give them an opportunity to communicate with you in a different way that they feel more comfortable with, whether they want to send you an email after or have a chat offline, but just make sure that everyone just feel that they're included.
Yeah, and to really plan ahead, to think about it before you go into a meeting, and how can you best take all those perspectives, get those different opinions. So that is one thing that we are doing, and we touched upon it, that we do for leadership. We do have unconscious bias trainings. And
do you think that works, by the way? Because I get like mixed reviews from people about unconscious bias training. I think it's like 50-50. People say it don't work by nature, but you know, the nature of unconscious bias is unconscious, and then therefore doing training, you know, is not really. I kind of get mixed reviews. What are your thoughts?
I think there's nothing wrong with it, but whether it really helps, and that is what I find so interesting. I think all the things that we do now for diversity, we are actually doing it for our next generation. You have a daughter as well. I have 3 children. It doesn't matter if they're 1 daughter, 2 sons, but what we want to show them is role models. So if we don't change anything now, they will grow up with this. We are creating the unconscious bias.
I love your point you're making, and it's fascinating when you see children play together, they don't see color or they don't see gender. So for example, Robin, obviously she's mixed race, and one of her friends at nurseries is a young white girl, and she calls her sister. So I'm going to see my sister today, and then she has a brother who's an African kid, and he's her brother. They don't say it's a learned behavior. You're right, obviously, as they grow up. It's incredible to see kids, the way they interact and play together, because they don't have that yet. They haven't been molded by society or their surroundings.
Yeah, and we are creating that bias. So now we are doing all these efforts. If you see it, how much attention is spent on doing this unconscious bias training, we should be focusing on not creating this bias in the next generation. And that is, but then still you need to do the same things, because you still need then female role models or diversity in any aspect. So you do have to continue what you're doing, but I think actually the real impact we can only see in the next generation. So it's a long-term project.
Yeah. And I'm assuming that this probably flows all the way through as well to your hiring strategy, right?
Yeah, so it really at the start is, so we look at the profiles that we are making. Are they is there a lot of masculine behavior in there? Sometimes you say a strong leader, and or you can describe it as someone that can communicate, can lead a team, can lead change, has emotional intelligence. All the aspects of a strong leader you can.
Yeah, you have to use the word strong. Yeah, I love it.
Yeah. And then by doing that you attract more female participants. So we have a recent example where we were selecting for our future leaders development program. So where we are selecting people from with 3 to 8 years experience, just starting, that we see as future leaders in a company. So we did that, and we also asked everyone to apply for themselves. So normally what business leaders like is say, well, I know who are my future stars, these and these I want. So we said, no, you can't do that. We want the people to apply for themselves, because
that's good.
Otherwise you get this like, they're like me. And we have to make this change. So that
so
also,
easy to do that as well. It's
like,
that's the problem. It's so easy for people to take that route because it's the path of least resistance.
Yes, yeah. So we're really looking at that, and then also with the whole process, what we did is we made it as objective as possible and unbiased as possible. So really looking at different criteria, assessments, and all of that. We did the blind CV selection. So we really looked into that, and what we have seen is that where in the company we have average of 27% of female employees, in this group that was selected finally was 44%.
Wow.
So you can really make a change, but it does require this conscious effort on all different parts of the process.
Yeah, because if you miss one part, it kind of is a ripple effect.
Yeah,
all the way down.
Right? As selection boards as well, they were always diverse. So all of those different aspects in the process we looked at.
That's great to hear. Yeah. Has COVID expanded now your reach in terms of talent? Because now, obviously, with hybrid work, you're no longer confined to location. Is not as well. Is that something you and the team have started working on?
Yeah, I think the COVID has had several good effects in a way. So I think the talent market, we are much less restricted to location. So I think also in the Netherlands is still our biggest base. So half of our people is in the Netherlands, but also within the Netherlands, which is a small country, but doesn't matter where you're based anymore. And internationally as well, there's much more, it's much easier to work together. So it doesn't really matter where you're based. So we've seen that we can tap into different talent that we were not able we were not looking at before.
Yeah, exactly. As well. But it means you're probably going to have to invest a bit more in the employer branding across multiple new countries and regions, which is quite exciting though to move into.
True.
As well. As a first time, you kind of jumped into the deep end, right? From being an engineer to leading a transformation on many, many levels. It couldn't have been much. How are you keeping yourself up to date with kind of what's happening around you, the profession itself? You couldn't have been a tougher time to jump into this seat as well. How do you kind of balance the actual execution whilst learning so much? And
I think it's also what really helps is that I'm really interested in this field. So learning doesn't feel like something I have to do, it's something I really want to. And I think that is something that I've always done. So 2.5 years ago when I started this role, I started listening to your podcast and a few others, and that is something that you can do while on a run, right? So I go running every day, I listen to your podcast, so it just, you can easily fit it in there. And so podcast is one way for me to keep up to date with what is happening in the industry and what are others doing, what can we learn from others. I think there are some other internet sources that Gartner I really like, RBL, but also just HBR, right? There's
HBR is always good.
Available.
Mm-hmm. And did you reach out to any other CHROs, just out of curiosity?
Yes, yeah. I have quite a nice network of CHROs that we share best practice and knowledge. Next week we have a session where we're going to talk about diversity. So we are trying to share best practices and also how we're going to influence the bigger ecosystem. Right? As a company alone, you can only do so much. But if we can do something together and make bigger changes, then
yeah. And just for it, a lot of people are quite afraid to reach out. Did you just reach out LinkedIn? Like, how did you approach it? Like, just in terms of building your network, because it's super important.
Yeah, before we had like networking events where you could actually meet people.
Those face-to-face things.
That doesn't happen anymore.
Yeah, it's a long time ago.
Yeah, so but there are still events as well. So there's now a lot of online networking events, but I think a lot is also finding the right people, and just reaching out on LinkedIn normally works quite well. Or there's always someone that is connected to us. So I think that really helps.
Yeah, but for everyone listening, that's something it doesn't cost anything, and get over the fear that they're not going to reply. If they don't reply, who cares? Like, but the people that do reply, it's incredible. The relationships that you can build off the back of that, and you've already got this incredible group that you're going to meet up with next week. What's their reaction when they know your background? Like, you sit down, you sit at your own, and they're like, "I love that. I love that." They're like, really? They're like, "What?"
Yeah, no. What I really experience is people are really interested, and a lot what I hear a lot as well. That's the future of HR. Is to have a background. You have to have a background in something else. Yeah. I think there is
you're right,
future in it,
because or they go the other way. So like, it's either two things: they either come from the business like yourself, or they start in HR, leave HR for a number of years, they go and work in finance, logistics, operation, and then they come back.
Yeah.
So all of the most successful CHROs I speak to that are leading some of the biggest companies, the most successful companies in the world, they all have that in common. Before I let you go, I'm going to jump into a quick fire round, and you knew this was coming if you listened to the show already, so probably prepared.
But your question is always a bit different, so let's see.
Sometimes I change it, you're right, but I'll keep it simple for you today, but it's probably going to be the same. So interestingly enough, because you've obviously, this is your one and only role, but the question, as you know, I'm going to ask is, what was the biggest challenge that you faced in becoming a CHRO?
For me, I think it's just raising your hands and stepping up and say, I think it's a bit of the imposter syndrome. If I'm good at something, it must be easy, and everyone else must be good at it. And so really say, okay, sometimes it's really good to step up.
Yeah. What's the worst that's going to happen? They say no.
Exactly. That's what I thought at the moment. If they don't want me, they will tell me, but I'm not going to tell it myself.
Love that. I love that. And who would have thought, again, an engineer, a career engineer, or you've had multiple roles, not just an engineer, but many, many roles, but now you're sitting as a CHRO. It's incredible what you can do when you just put your hand up and put yourself forward, especially when you have such a great organization like yours, which encourages this as part of the culture, and they understand that they're going to keep great people if they offer these development opportunities.
Yeah. And I think you believe in it yourself. I think that's the real thing. If you believe in it yourself, that you can do it, that's the first step. Yeah,
because like, I wish I kind of had that mindset early on in my career. Don't sit around and wait for someone to tap you on the shoulder.
Yeah.
And I have to just go for the opportunities. And again, what's the worst? The worst that can happen is you just carry on doing what you're doing anyway.
Exactly. Yeah.
So you may as well go for it. What's the best piece of business advice you've ever received?
I would say to take someone else's perspective, to really look at it from different angles and from different sides before you take a decision or before you move on. So it's
very, very good advice. Not always easy.
Not always easy. No.
Yeah, but that's even why it's more important to do that. How would your friends and family describe what you do for a living?
Yeah, that one I like, because it's. I think if you ask my husband, he would say culture, something about culture, because that's what I most talk about. And for my children, they really know what my company does. And so what are we doing in the world? There's always examples around us that we can talk about. And then they know that I do something with people.
Yeah, mummy's in meetings every day.
Yeah.
Online. You've already shared some of the resources already, so I'll link those. I suppose in kind of you mentioned earlier, but now more than ever, we kind of need to take care of ourselves. I think we've all heard the whole HR needs to put our own oxygen mask on first so we can help everyone else. But what are some of the things that you use to take care of your own mental health and physical and mental health and well-being?
For me, it's exercise. So I really need my exercise. So on a daily basis, I make sure that there is time for that. So that is, I think what is great is employee well-being is now on top of mind of a lot of people, and it's much more you can talk about it. And so that is one of the positive things I think of COVID. But I noticed for myself as well, with all these changes and working from home and homeschooling the kids, and you're always trying to find a new balance. As soon as I didn't put exercise and sports on my priority list, it doesn't work. So that is for me the number one thing to continue to do.
And you mentioned earlier, it's running, right? Is that your go-to? Is it running?
Running is my favorite. Yeah, running, but also skating or cycling or
skating as well.
Yeah.
Right, rollerblading.
Rollerblading, yeah.
Oh man, we're gonna have to go rollerblading. I have to meet up because I love rollerblading.
Our
rollerblades are in the office. I can see them from here as well. So we'll go roll or whatever you want to do. Maybe, are you a morning runner or evening?
It doesn't matter the time.
Really?
Yeah.
Okay.
Because I love it like early morning when it's still a bit fresh outside. I did my morning run this morning. But it's also very good, like after work, to wind down, to disconnect.
Separate the day.
And so that also works, or late evening. So when it all works.
You don't mind. Oh, that's good though. I struggle in the morning. I know people love morning. Like my co-founder, he goes for a morning run all the time. I'm too asleep. I'm more of an evening person for exercise. And last question before I let you go. What are you most excited about moving forward?
I think we are in a period now with the business that is really exciting, that we are transforming the company and that we can even make a bigger impact with what we do. And I think it's a very exciting time to be driving this transformation within the company.
Amazing. Well, look, where can people connect with you if they want to reach out? If they want to say hello, we've got to keep building a network.
Well, LinkedIn, I think, is the easiest. So that's for me, that works.
Fantastic. Well, for everyone listening, the link's already below, so make sure you go and connect as well. But thank you so much for joining me. It means a lot, and thank you for all your support. Obviously, it's always nice speaking to someone who listens to the show as well, but it means a lot, and I'm glad it helped in the early days. This is why we do the show. Sometimes we sit in the office in the seat and kind of just record these shows every day, but you don't really know the impact you're having, sometimes because you're kind of just in the moment of doing it as well. So I'm really happy for you and for everything you're doing, and what a great organization to be part of as well.
Yeah, well, thanks a lot. Thanks a lot for having me, and I will continue to listen to your podcast.
If you keep listening, I'll keep recording. So that's it.
That would be great. Yeah, thanks.
All right. See you later. Thank you.
Thanks. Bye.
Bye.